Hey everybody, welcome to HBCU-DAP's virtual workshop series, session 1, Grad School 101. I'm Sierra.
And I'm Tony.
And today we're going to be talking to you about graduate programs, how to create your research resume, and give you a little bit background about why we created HBCU-DAP and our journey to grad school. Before we start, we do want to make this disclosure statement that participation in this webinar does not guarantee admission into any graduate program or institution. Our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect the opinion of any university or institution. And also, this PowerPoint belongs to us and is not intended for duplication, distribution, or monetization. We will give you these slides once we finish. And also, feel free to ask us questions and comments as we're going through this. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So, again, I'm Sierra. I'm one of the co-founders of HBCU-DAP. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I went to Winston-Salem State University for undergrad, where I got my bachelor's degree in chemistry. While I was there, I did a ton of undergraduate research, including through the Student Honors Organization. I went to Duke for a summer research program, also did HBCU-UP and Brown Scholars. Currently, I'm a third-year PhD candidate in molecular integrative physiology, and I'm also the president of the Graduate Society of Black Engineers and Scientists. So, again, I started at Winston-Salem in 2011 as a chem major. In 2013, I worked as a technician because I thought I wanted to go to pharmacy school. After doing research, I found out this is not the path I wanted to take. So in 2014, I applied to PhD programs and took my GRE for the first time. Graduated, did not get into graduate school the first time. So I did a post-bac program at Wake Forest to get more research-intensive experience and to kind of prepare me for graduate school. I applied a second time in 2015 and took the GRE a second time. Still didn't get into grad school, but that's fine. I was in a 2-year post-bac program. So in 2016, I applied for the third time, and I got into a PhD program at the University of Michigan, where I'm now a PhD candidate. And hopefully I will be doctor in 2022.
All right. So my name is Tony Larkin. I'm from Warner Robins, Georgia. I received my BS in biology at Morehouse College in 2013. While I was at Morehouse, I got interested or started doing research through the MBRS RISE program. I also was an LSAMP scholar while at Morehouse in the AUC. I did 2 summer programs that consisted of the Brain Fellowship as well as the MSNAD, which was at Mount Sinai. I'm currently a 5th-year graduate student in neuroscience and the outgoing president of the Neuroscience Graduate Student Organization and the DEI student rep for the graduate program that I'm currently in. So to talk a little bit about my journey. So right before my senior year, or actually during my senior year, I took the GRE for the first time. And then I completed an honor thesis based on the research that I was doing at Morehouse. And I graduated May 2013. And then I took a little time off to work as a lab manager at Georgia State University. And then during that time, I ended up actually taking the MCAT. And because I was thinking about maybe looking at MD, PhD, or medical school. However, I was really interested in research and ended up applying as well that same fall to PhD programs. And I got into the University of Michigan and started the fall of 2015.
So, why did we create HBCU-DAP? So the purpose of this platform is to help increase the number of Black PhD recipients, specifically targeting HBCU students. So in 2015, there was approximately 40,000 science engineering degrees awarded. Only 23%, which is about a quarter, were life science degrees, which is what me and Tony do. Of that 23%, only 5% of those people were Black or African American.
So of the Black STEM PhDs, 44 pursue biomedical and biological sciences. So essentially what we actually are studying. And 25% actually receive undergraduate degrees at HBCUs and then receive their PhD from predominantly white or research-intensive institutions. And so this kind of helps us kind of go back and reach back to HBCUs, but also shows kind of this need for programming like this.
And also, if you notice, only a quarter of people that graduate from HBCUs, they receive their PhD from PWI. So as you saw throughout our journey, we had a lot of research experience as undergrads and even the time in between. So we want to talk to you about how do you actually get research experience. If you don't have research experience now, that's fine. You have options. Get into research now. 3 ways you can do that is a summer research program if you're not a graduating senior, post-bac program if you are a graduating senior, and you can also join a faculty lab. It does not have to be a defined program for you to get research experience.
Right. So as I basically started my interest in research, I actually just emailed a professor, and he was doing neuroscience research. And so I said, hey, I'm kind of interested in learning more about neuroscience. Are you taking lab students or looking for students to kind of work in your lab? And he set up a meeting with me, and basically that's kind of where it all began. I've been doing research ever since. So the other way that we kind of talked about was basically using summer research programs. So these are essentially funded by granting bodies. So there are a number of different types of summer research programs that basically span across SURF, which is the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship, correct? All right. Yeah. And then SROP, RAU, NIH. If you've looked through or participated in some of these programs, this definitely is not the entire list. But basically, these are during the summer. They last for about 6 to 12 weeks, depending on each program. And typically, as a student, you're basically actively engaged in the research setting, getting that primary research experience to kind of expose you to what it's like to be doing full-time research. Also, as a part of these, you're basically have some type of professional development workshops that span across kind of how to give a research presentation, how to go about doing interviews, things like that. And often they provide you with a stipend for the summer, as well as housing and travel. Although I think some programs may vary as far as what they actually provide or not. So that's something to kind of look at as you begin to apply. But what's really nice is kind of at the end, most programs have like a end of the summer research symposium where you basically have the opportunity to present your research. You also can submit your abstract. I know some people that did research this past summer will be presenting their research at conferences in the coming fall. So you have that opportunity to continue to do that. These are really nice because it's a way to kind of build your academic network, as well as it's available to both rising juniors, seniors, as well as some sophomores. Right. Yeah. So I think that we want to kind of highlight this pro tip, but aim to do a summer research program almost every summer that you can. It doesn't have to be a formal summer research program. I did one or 2 summers. I actually just worked in the lab that I was working at Morehouse. But try to do at least something that's research engaged, research like that you could talk about in your interviews. And remember that everything is a networking experience. So even if you don't enjoy the research that you're doing, remember that the relationships that you build are impressionable and they matter.
Also, we do have some resources for summer programs. So at the end of our webinar today, we'll email you either tonight or tomorrow, but we have some links for some summer programs in case you're stuck on how to actually find those. So I'm going to go into a post-bac program since that's what I did after undergrad. So a post-bac research program is kind of like mini grad school. So you take classes and you do research full-time in the lab. They're also funded by granting bodies. So NIH has the Post-Baccalaureate Research Education Program, which is what I did at Wake Forest, where there are at least 30 institutions in the United States that are part of this program. So you can do this at any institution, and there's still new ones that are emerging. They usually last 1 year. My program lasted 2 years. It's one of the only ones that allows you to do it for 2 years, but most of them are 1 year programs. But again, you're actively engaged in a research lab setting. You're doing research full time. You don't rotate like you would do in graduate school, but you get to interview people before you actually join for a day. Again, there's professional development workshops. So we learned how to give an elevator speech, learn how to build a CVE, learn how to build a bio sketch, things like that, learn how to actually present. We had journal club, I think, once a week. We also had GRE prep. There are funds through the prep program that allows you to take like a Kaplan course. So you get GRE prep. We'll talk about GRE a little bit later. Again, you take the same classes as first year graduate students. And then you also get a salary and benefits. So the thing about this here is that you're kind of an employee, even though you're going through this program. So you do have the option to get benefits, and you do get paid a yearly salary that is set by the NIH, which, if you don't know what NIH is, it's the National Institutes of Health. Again, you present research and attend conferences. I think most prep programs go to ABRCAM, which is the annual biomedical research conference for minority students. It is in November. I will be in attendance. Some of you probably already know about ABRCAMs. And then again, everything is a networking experience. These same people that you meet in your summer programs and your post-bac programs, if you work in a lab, they can write letters of recommendation for you. And then when you get into your field, there are people you can collaborate with and just ask for advice going forward. And this is only available to graduating seniors. So the way that I did it, so I told you I applied my first time. I didn't get in. I didn't know what a post-bac program was. One of my schools that I didn't get into were like, you'd be a good candidate for a post-bac program because you already have strong research experience. So I applied later. The applications are like in March. So I had time to apply. So this is an option. It can be your plan A, but it can also be your plan B or C. So don't feel discouraged if you don't get in the first time. Everybody's applying, so it's fine. But you have to be a graduating senior in order to participate in this program.
You know what's interesting, though? I didn't realize this till literally right now. We both took time off between undergrad and grad
I took
school.
2 years off.
It's about the same. I think I started fall of 2015. So.
And it's okay to take time off. Don't let nobody shame you into not going straight from undergrad into any kind of graduate program. If you need time off just to go work, and like for a company as a technician, that's fine. Do what's best for you. Don't let anyone shame you into how your path should look, because clearly ours look different than a lot of other people's.
But I think it's important that if you take that time off and you're interested in going to research, that you need to be doing something.
Oh, yeah.
Science or research.
You can't like just be like, oh, I'm just going to take a summer off and go backpack in Europe. I mean, you can, but like, you got to explain that when you apply for a school. If they ask you, well, why did you take this year off to backpack? You know, kind of make it fit to your personal statement and who you are as a person and how it shaped you to be ready for graduate school. Something like that, you know?
Yep. All right. So one of the questions, do I want a master's or a doctorate degree? So here I just want to go through what is a master's as well as a PhD. So master's programs are typically specialized programs with flexible degree requirements. So every master's program probably doesn't look the same. So they're about 1 to 3 years, and there's typically less funding available for the students, primarily because I think the amount of time that it takes compared to the PhD. However, most students fund their master's program, as I know, through loans or scholarships. And the degree requirements, like I said, they vary, but usually they either are consist of a thesis, so like a master's thesis if you're doing like research, or a capstone project where you basically are kind of doing some type of work, field work, or something of that nature that you kind of bring to like a culmination of your degree. Other programs have comprehensive exams where you basically have to complete like a written or oral exam. And there's usually some type of teaching requirement as well involved in these. Yeah,
some programs, the teaching requirement actually funds you. So if you teach, they pay you, and it kind of like covers, or you get like half tuition or something like that. So there's options for funding.
Any way to get it paid for or to decrease the amount that you have to pay student loans is probably the way to go.
There are fully funded master's programs as well. Wake Forest has one in biology. That's the only one I know of, but they exist.
Sweet. So the PhD is basically, it's more intensive it's a more intensive graduate degree. And so basically what's happening here is that you're basically spending a lot of time doing intensive research that results in generation of new knowledge. So these typically take 4 to 7 years. I think the average is usually around like 5.5, or 6. And these are typically fully funded for most biomedical sciences. Through grants and fellowships that come across many different training grants, NIH, NSF, and we'll talk about fellowships and everything later in another session. So degree requirements, almost all PhD programs require you to write a dissertation and have a thesis defense as a part of the requirements. However, what's really interesting, and I think a common misconception that people have, is that a master's degree is not required for admission into a PhD program.
That is true.
And so typically you can go straight after your undergraduate degree, or you can go right after the master's. However, you don't have to do both in order one to get to the other. And typically, most PhD programs, I think it's really good to have at least a minimum of first author publication. However, some programs may not require that for your PhD to receive your PhD. All right. And so just kind of to address the overlap, essentially both the master's and the PhD program involve advanced level courses.
Mm-hmm.
So basically in your undergrad, you're taking kind of all the courses in your major as well as courses outside, where in these programs, you're typically taking classes only within your major and you're going more in depth for each of these courses, as well as they both have a research component depending on the type of master's program you have, and definitely in the PhD. And you have to have at least a bachelor's degree to apply to both.
Yeah, and you can also use a master's as a bridge to a doctorate. There are bridge to doctorate programs. LSAMP, LSAMP is one of those programs. So they have a summer undergraduate component, but the graduate component is called bridge to doctorate. So you can get your master's, and some schools like automatically push you into a PhD. Some of them kind of function a little bit like post-bac programs, but you get a master's at the end. So they prepare you, but don't necessarily give you admissions into their PhD program.
That's cool.
So what does our journey look like now that we're actually PhD students? So year one, usually any biomedical science PhD program, you're taking your core courses. So I think I took 4 to 6 classes my first year. 4 were core classes, 2 were electives.
Yep.
You do lab rotations. Now, every program does not require you to do lab rotations, but if you have the option to rotate, you should rotate. So it lets you know like what you like as a scientist, what kind of mentoring style you like. You kind of just find more about yourself.
Yeah.
I found a lot about myself during rotations. I found what didn't work for me in a work situation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say also the type of research that you like. Like you may think you like one thing and then you get into the lab and you're like, oh, I kind of don't really like this.
Or you find that you like stuff. So I knew I didn't like computational work because I did that in undergrad and I didn't like it. But I'm in an immunology lab. I had no interest in immunology. And, so also I would say mentor-mentee pairing. So find a mentor. Some people have it structured, but you can find a mentor. And then also join student orgs. So
in year 2, typically you join your thesis lab. So after you rotate, and you begin your thesis research. And basically you then take maybe a few more core classes if you have more. Some programs actually split theirs across 2. However, I think a lot of programs may be pushing more into that first year so you can get your thesis research going a little bit faster. But during that year, you also take a cognate elective. So I took my cognate elective during my second year. So I was basically moving into more computational research. So I took a computational course, which was fun. Yeah, it was fun. But also during this year, you have your typically either at the beginning or the end, your preliminary exam. And so this is actually kind of your ticket to candidacy to say, okay, I have done all the required coursework that I need to actually go ahead and pursue my PhD. Right. And so this is kind of I think a lot of graduate students or faculty probably could talk about this and say, this is probably one of the most stressful times in graduate school, but it's not the worst or the scariest time. I don't know. But I think the main thing is this is kind of your chance or this is the time where you basically are saying, okay, I know enough within the field and I'm ready to go to the next level. The preliminary exam vary across programs. So as you begin to think about what programs you're interested in applying to, you may want to ask a question of how do your students advance to candidacy. And this can look anywhere from a comprehensive exam over all of the coursework that you've taken to oral defense or grant writing.
Or both.
Yeah, or both. So it's a question to ask. I think that a lot of people don't really think about until they get to graduate school. And then it's kind of like, oh, I have this exam that I have to take and I wish I knew this. So that's something to think about as you begin to kind of select your programs.
And then also you can ask, so we want this to be as interactive as possible. Our next sessions will be more interactive, but like we're kind of just like giving you an overview of what's to come. But you can ask us questions and comments and we'll respond. We'll also have a section to do questions at the end, but feel free to comment or, you know, just say, hey, whatever you want to do. But we're here to answer questions for you.
In year 3?
Year 3, year 3 and beyond, whatever the beyond is for you. Yeah. You're basically doing thesis research. Depending on where you are, you may have the option to like explore different careers, like an internship, or I guess the only thing I can think of that people do is an internship. But you can do, depending on where you are, you have the option to like explore different careers, like policy. There's student orgs, like we have certificate programs that we can do. You might be able to get an extra degree while you're there, but your primary focus is your thesis research. If you were to grant for prelims, more than likely whatever you wrote for prelims is your thesis project, but it can change because I'm in that boat. But, you know, you just basically doing your research and generating this new knowledge. So when it's time for you to go, you're able to publish.
Right. So I think it's important to do your research, but also start to think about, okay, what's going on afterwards. And all of that happens kind of during that year.
Yeah, work-life balance. You can have a life and be a grad student. I have a life outside of grad school, and I think my lab is aware of that. But you just want to make sure you're in an environment that allows you to have a work-life balance. So picking a mentor is probably the most important thing you can do as a graduate student, whether it's a master's program, a post-bac program, or a PhD. Picking a mentor is key to happiness in grad school.
All right. So I have my PhD. Now what? So I think traditionally, it's thought that most PhDs are going to be professors or work in academia. However, here, through the pie chart that's labeled sectors, what you can see is that actually people that have PhDs kind of span across all of the different sectors. So a majority of them are in academia, specifically at four-year institutions. However, a lot of them also go to industry, which is kind of that for-profit block, as well as nonprofit. Another group that I think is also growing that my dad kind of he mentioned, but I never really took seriously, but working for the government. So you can go and work. Yeah. It's kind of like,
option number 3.
So you could work for the government, both local and federal government. You also could basically be self-employed and have a startup. I mean, I guess that's probably similar to for-profit, but essentially,
it's a little bit different. You don't work for nobody.
Yeah. So, but basically, getting a PhD does not require you to actually say, okay, I'm going to go and be a research professor. And I think that the culture is definitely growing in the direction of actually more non-academic careers options for PhD students. The other thing is that even though you get your PhD in a biomedical science, you may not necessarily always be doing science. So a huge chunk of your time, even I think most faculty members are saying that their chunk of time is teaching. So it's not even really at the bench.
And writing grants.
Yep. So teaching and writing grants. But essentially, you're basically providing some professional service. There's basic research, applied research, web design, computational analyses. I mean, basically, the whole point, I think, now is also, as a PhD student, you are also developing transferable skills. And so essentially what it is, your project management, leadership skills. I mean, there are a host of skills that you get with your PhD, not just, okay, I have to learn how to do this one analysis.
You're not just pipetting. That's not the only thing you're taking from grad school.
So, and it's just really important, I think, for people that are in graduate school, but also people that are interested to know. It's not, you're not going to be limited to one thing, but you have a diverse array of tools that you're also getting while you're doing this.
So just as a tangible example, so the graduate student that graduated in my lab maybe 4 years ago, he came back and talked to us. We're an immunology lab. We look at fat tissue and the immune system. He currently works for some company in Boston. He works on developing an app between patients and doctors. He had no experience in tech development, but because he has the skills, so like you said, project management skills, once you publish, that is kind of your currency. You know how to generate new knowledge, which means you know how to lead, which means you know how to be an independent, whatever, researcher, manager, thinker, whatever. So like the things that you can do with a PhD, like this is not inclusive at all. There are so many other things that you can do. My mentor works for a pharmaceutical company. He doesn't do any science, but he talks to people about the kind of work that they do at the industry. So you can do a lot of things. You don't have to do science for the rest of your life. I sure don't plan on doing science for the rest of my life. As much as I love science, you can do whatever you want to do once you leave here.
Yep. But if you want to go into academia, don't feel like you have to hide that either.
Tony want to be a teacher, y'all. So I'm sorry, a professor, a research professor. And that's good. We need more Black educators at this level.
That's true.
So overview the application process. So HBCU-DAP, we're going to be walking you through this process from telling you what grad school is about up until transitioning. So applications are open. So if you want to apply for a PhD program, they open September 1st. Mm-hmm. Deadlines are the 1st or the 15th. So you have time. They're open now. It's September, 18th? So they've been open for about 2 weeks and some change.
Almost 3.
Interview offers usually happen around December, early January. It depends on where you apply. Some application due dates are later. So Morehouse School of Medicine is usually in January. North Carolina Central, these are schools I applied to, was in March. So some are a little bit later. So if you want to go to institutions that are later, you have a little bit more time. I'm not sure if the applications are open yet. So that's the thing. But you can look online. Also, if you're going to Abercrombie or Sackness, you can, these schools usually are there so you can talk to them. And you usually get a fee waiver. And we'll talk about fee waivers. But fee waivers are important. If it ain't on a website, just ask. You never know.
Always ask.
I only paid for one school and I applied to about 10. So, and they're expensive. Mm-hmm. Interviews usually happen between January and March. You usually get a decision sometimes shortly after your interview. So for me, when I interviewed here, I knew the next day. Some take longer, and that's fine. So, and even if you say you go on an interview January 30th, and they tell you January 31st you get in, go on all your interviews and weigh your options. You have until April 15th, which is also the tax deadline, to accept your offer. There is a law that protects students from that. So if there's a school that tries to make you or force you into accepting an offer before the 15th, you need to ask them, can they legally? Most public institutions are under that umbrella where they cannot force you to. Private institutions kind of sometimes do their own thing. But definitely for public institutions, you have until the 15th. And if you don't make your decision until the 15th at 2 p.m., that's your right.
Yeah. But if you know that you probably won't go to, or you're not interested in the school, because whatever, definitely let the school know. But I also agree. Wait till the 15th. If you're just even into just not sure. So
even if it's a school that you don't want to go to, and this I'm just speaking from person because this was how I took it. Yeah. If I didn't want to go to X school, but X school was the only person that gave me admissions, I was going to accept. That's just me as a person.
No, that's so
that's why I say wait till the 15th. Even if you really want to be there and not wait until next cycle, just try it.
Yep.
I guess. I mean, I know that's not probably the politically correct thing to say, but if you really want to go to grad school, sometimes you can just make things work. You never know. You might actually like it once you actually get there and be a student, because sometimes interviews and actual reality once you get there are not the same thing. People are usually extra nice during interview weekend. If people are blatantly rude to you during interview weekend, then you probably don't want to go there. But, just weigh your options.
Weigh your options. And always, if you have questions, feel free to contact the programs. I know some people say, oh, I want to talk to this professor, or I really didn't get this information. And they had Skype interviews even after being invited for the interview. So don't feel like you can't ask for more information. Programs, if they invite you for an interview, they want you to come. So definitely remember that as much as you want to get into the program, they also want you to be there. So think of that.
And we'll talk more about interviews in January, but ask all the questions. Don't feel afraid to ask questions.
Yep.
So next session 2, we're going to go through application materials, but for a checklist. So what you need if you're applying this year, next year, whatever, you want to have a list of programs. And I'll show you what I use to make my list and stay organized if you're type A like me. Your statement of purpose, which is usually why you want to go to grad school / this institution / this program.
Yep.
Your personal statement is who you are as a person, what determined why you wanted to get in this field, what shaped you into the person you are now to prepare you for this experience. Personal and statement of purpose are sometimes combined, so just be careful for requirements for different schools.
Right.
Your research statement is literally that. You are just telling your research, and for the most part, that's it. If they ask for a personal statement and a research statement, do not put any personal statement stuff in your research statement. We'll talk about that later, but when they ask for something, be specific to what they're asking, because sometimes if you write what's not, they might just be like, oh, what's the paragraph? And then none of this address the research stuff, so we're just not going to read it. 3 letters of recommendation, a CV, or a curriculum vitae. If you don't have a CV, that's fine. If you have a resume, you can start from your resume and build your CV, and we'll teach you how to do that in session 2, which is next Wednesday.
Yep.
Also, official transcripts from any institution asterisk that you went to. So when I applied to grad school, I technically went to Indiana University in high school because I took dual courses, but I didn't submit that. So you can, if you have questions about that, if you have like dual credit courses, you may want to ask an institution if they want everything. Most institutions are like, no, just give us what's on your undergrad. Even though those courses were on my undergrad GPA, it wasn't, some schools wanted the actual Indiana University transcript. So you can ask that. GRE. So this is in yellow, and sorry I can't see it, but the thing in yellow, it says GRE. So the GRE for a lot of biomedical science programs is no longer a requirement. I have a link. It's a working link. So like as schools are added and programs are added, it updates who doesn't who doesn't require the GRE anymore. And I think there's over 50 programs on there at the moment. So you can double check. If you don't have to take it, don't take it.
No, but I think that's definitely growing. I think I saw on Twitter today, like another school is actually, or another program is actually not requiring the GRE. So definitely look into it. But some programs, if you definitely want to go to them, you actually are going to probably need to take the GRE. It's a standardized test and it's a hoop. But if you don't have to do it and you only want to apply to programs that don't require the GRE, there's a whole list that you can apply to.
And then lastly, so these are our little keys to success. So if you're applying this year, you want to start on your personal statement now. You can do something as simple as like Googling personal statement examples. Yep. Once we get to application materials next week, we'll have examples for you too, and we'll kind of teach you how to build it. We'll give you like little prompts and have mini workshops during our session next time. Mm-hmm. So it'll be way more interactive. Right. Choose your references wisely. The first year that I applied to grad school, I applied to an institution in a state in the South, and I would not name it. But when I asked them why I didn't get in, they kind of, went through my application with me. And one of the reasons was one of my recommenders wrote a half-page letter recommendation. It was all very good stuff. But when people are looking at letter recommendations, they want to know that it's from someone that truly knows you as a researcher and as a person. He didn't train me. His graduate student trained me. So what I should have did was ask the grad student to write it with the PI. Yeah. And it would have been longer and more about me and what I can do as a scientist. So don't say, just can you write me a letter? Say, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? Strong
is the key word.
Say there. Strong. If they say, some people would tell you no. There are some people that will tell you yes and then not be strong. But I feel like you kind of know who you have a relationship with in undergrad and through your networks. Use conferences and summer research experience as networking opportunities, like we said earlier. Right. Do not limit yourself when applying to schools. I applied to 4 schools in the same state my first year because I didn't want to leave the state. I applied to 10 schools and I got into 8 of them because I stopped limiting myself. So if that's not a factor for you, for some people, location is, and that's huge. Fine. That's fine. For me, it really wasn't. I just was comfortable where I was and I didn't want to get out of that comfort zone. But don't limit yourself if you do not have to.
Yep. I think, and it doesn't hurt. You apply, and when you get, your interviews and acceptances, then you can make the decision of location and figuring out, okay, maybe I do want to stay home. But the biggest thing is apply. don't limit yourself from not applying, because you really won't get in if you don't apply.
Yeah, especially if it's free. When y'all get to Abercams, because I know some of y'all going, one of y'all follow me, and I know one of y'all on here, but I know y'all going to Abercams. Apply to it's free during Abercams. Most schools are free fee waivers, and just apply to as many as you can, or at least collect the fee waivers, because sometimes they'll give you a code or something like that. But
also, if you're in like RISE or MART programs, they also will give you fee waivers for being in those programs. Mm-hmm. So definitely, I mean, if you go to Abercam, SACNAS, sometimes even SFN, if you go to any college fair. FSN? Sorry, Society for Neuroscience.
Neuroscience is here. Okay.
Yeah. It's a huge conference, and it's happening in a couple of weeks.
Okay. That's cool.
So, but yeah, if you go to a conference and you talk to someone that's recruiting, definitely ask them about fee waivers. Applying to graduate school can be expensive, and you don't want that to limit you from applying to a specific program that you definitely want to go to. Mm-hmm. So, contact faculty that you're interested in before.
Did you do that?
I don't think I did.
I did that, y'all. I contacted everybody on my list.
I participated in preview, but I don't think I contacted a preview weekend.
Oh, I didn't do those.
Yeah.
I just was like, I want to work with this person. I sent them an email like, hey, I'm applying to your program.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your research.
That's a pro tip.
And he was like, oh, let's have a Skype interview. Mm-hmm. And so we Skyped. And once I got to the school, he was like, hey, how you doing? So when you do that, you have an advocate at the university. Faculty love when you want to know about their research and you're interested, because a lot of people do not reach out. And so if you...
Or read about them before you meet with them.
Yeah. Okay, go on PubMed. We'll talk about it. You can go on PubMed, search their name, and read the first 2 papers. Just the abstract. It's a talking point. But we'll tell you more about that once we get to interview prep, which is in January. And then lastly, I would say send follow-up thank you emails, or you can mail a personal thank you. I know someone that likes when people mail them personal thank you cards, but a lot of people don't. It's a simple thank you for taking the time to interview with me. Hope to see you in next semester or next year, whatever. But just simply saying thank you for your time. Yeah. Like, a lot of people are taking time out of their schedules to come and meet with you.
No, when you go on interviews, you need to be respectful and thank them for kind of doing, because they're really trying to recruit you. And like you said, taking your time, even from the graduate students that are walking you around, like they are taking a day or days out, and somebody's planned all of this, including your travel. Mm-hmm. But so you're interviewing them, they're interviewing you, but the main thing I think is really to be nice and cordial.
Also, the important thing he said is you're interviewing them, and that will help you with nerves. That helped me a lot, because I was like, well, I got all these interview offers, and I'm just at this one school. And so it's not like I don't have options. Not to be like arrogant or anything, but like, you're also interviewing them. You need to ask questions that make sure it fits for you.
Yep.
Like, I asked, do y'all do diversity outreach? And one institution told me no. And as soon as they sent me the year accepted email, I said, no, thank you.
Because wait, you didn't wait till the 15th? No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
Absolutely. But I knew I did not want to go to that school because I was interviewing them. And that is something that is very important to me as a graduate student. So yes, I'm here for science, but if I can't do health disparity research or do any kind of outreach with the community, and I was in a very diverse city, y'all. So I don't understand why they didn't. But that was something that they did not do. They did not promote at the institution. Like, I could have done it, but I would have had to go through like hoops and obstacles and approvals. So I was just like, okay, well, this is not for me, and that's fine.
Yeah, but that's also, I think, an important thing is because someone asked me that actually during the interview. It was kind of like, what does the DEI work look like? What do the DEI initiatives look like? And to know that that's something that someone thinks about when they are applying to graduate school is important, because that tells you that the environment, one, is changing to be more accepting, but more so that university is committed to DEI and really wanting to kind of increase the diversity, make the environment more inclusive, and respect kind of people, all walks of life. I think that's definitely important in this day and age.
I agree. Also, I mean, if diversity is not important to you, that's also fine. True. Don't feel like you're forced. But like, if you're a person that wants to just be accepted regardless of your race, anything that makes you not quote unquote normal, which that's subjective, but you want to make sure you're at a place that makes you feel included and part of their community. So even if it's not doing outreach, if it's something like just having a student org for people that are left-handed, if that's important to you, like if you have the option to create something, like that's a good sign. It's not there, but if you want to create it, we can create it for you. So just want to go somewhere that's the inclusive part is the most important. Diversity is also important, but you want to make sure once they diversify the pool that the people there feel included and supported.
DE&I.
Yes, sometimes people forget the I, also the E. But D is also important, I will say that. But you just want to make sure that there's room to grow in the E and the I area.
Yep.
I will say that. So this is all that we have for you for session 1. This is our contact information. Our email is up top. You can email us anything. Follow us on Twitter, HBCU_DAP. If you have any questions and you're just too afraid to ask us on the live chat, that's fine. Tweet us, mention us, and use the hashtag HBCU-DAP. Either Tony or myself will respond to you on our Twitter. So just so you know, you're communicating with either one of us at any point. So you see our faces, we're friendly, we're normal. Yeah. You know, we're normal. We are here for you. We created this for you. I know there are some of you that are not HBCU students, and that's fine. This initiative was designed around HBCU students, but the information is universal. So if we happen to be mentors for you, that's great. If we can offer you support, that's great. And we're going to give you resources to be the best candidate and PhD student and career person going forward.